doing college level courses, you can imagine, and he's initiated in the Krishna consciousness movement at his age, and he's traveling around the world and also in his own way spreading spirituality. So you can see the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And Prabhu, just you can see that the pudding is in the tasting, they say, right? So he was just doing such ecstatic Miradanga playing and kirtan. So you can see that he's really has something to share. And now, not just in kirtan, he's going to speak. So please, if possible, attentively listen to what he's about to say. And I'm just very grateful to have Prabhu's association and the association of his grace for J. Prabhu. So take the association of these ladies. We can also, in our traditional style, we don't just clap, we also say Hari Bol. So we can say Hari Bol loudly 3 times for these devotees. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. And maybe one Hare Krishna Maha Mantra.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So the floor is yours. Please continue.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your kind words. I didn't know I was doing so many things. But one of the main lessons of this pastime is how, especially the churning of the milk ocean, is how much we are dependent on Krishna, how much we are dependent on the Lord's help. And that is shown in this particular pastime. The Lord comes in different stages. Yeah, I'll share it. Comes in different stages, and then he basically helps the devotees. And of course, the demons as well in this particular pastime. So first, I'd like to, let's start with the Mangala Charan prayers. Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Nilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dati Swakarantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopeshwar Gopika Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchana Kalpatarubhyasya Vipa Sindhu Vacha Vajitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The blessings of Jai Prabhu, His grace of Jai Prabhu, and all the assembled devotees. I'm hoping I'll be able to speak something that is useful and inspiring, and also for my own purification. The 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is such a. I'm recently just reading some portions of it because it starts with Gajendra's prayers, Gajendra Moksha, the whole pastimes of Gajendra, and then of course it comes next to the Samudra Manthan Leela, the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I thought I'll talk about a few points from that section of the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Are you able to hear me clearly? Okay. So, of course, all of you know the story. There are a lot of some lessons we can take from these different incidents from the churning of the milk ocean. Of course, the whole pastime actually begins this particular section of the pastime begins with the demigods actually offending Durvasa Muni. That's how this pastimes unfold. So Durvasa Muni is actually very pleased with Indra, and Indra is on Airavata at that time. And then Durvasa Muni being pleased, he actually gives us garland as a blessing to Indra. And Indra, whatever mood he was in, he was actually a little bit in puffed up mood at that time. And so Indra actually takes that garland that Durvasa Muni gives and gives it to Airavata. And then Airavata actually takes that garland, and because it's just an elephant, it doesn't know how to actually receive, the mercy of a great soul. So it just, tramples that particular garland, and then Durvasa Muni is very offended, and then he curses the demigods to lose everything because of the particular offense. And then, of course, the demigods then basically lose everything. The demons actually worship Sukracharya, who is their spiritual master, and then they please him. And because of that particular strength and because of the power that comes from pleasing the Brahmanas and especially their spiritual master, they are actually able to overcome the demigods. That's how the whole story begins, actually. So that particular section we can Prabhupada very, of course there is the lesson that we can learn is to not be especially material opulences. If we are actually full of material opulences, then there is a tendency to actually become puffed up, and this is the case of the materialist, and not necessarily the case of devotees, because devotees, when they chant the holy names and take shelter of Krishna, then they are actually protected from these material allurements, or this material impact, by the material energy. So because of this, so it's a lesson to learn that one should be humble, as Krishna says in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In the process of knowledge, the process of knowledge, he gives 19 items, as a system of knowledge or process of knowledge. And what are the first two items that Krishna mentions? Anybody know?
Humility.
Yes. No.
Presence.
Yes. Amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, shanti, arjavam, acharya, upasana, shaucham, and then atma vinigraham, something, atma vinigraham. So Krishna says that the process of system of knowledge, or the process of knowledge, actually begins with humility and pridelessness. So one lesson we can take is actually how to, of course, how to cultivate or how to be in the mode of humility, or how to be humble, actually. And this is also discussed in the Leela of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So one of the best ways we can be humble is to actually chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And especially if you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with attentiveness and with good quality, then naturally, because of that purification that comes from the practice, humility naturally arises in our heart. Of course, to be humble, itself requires some purification. To be generally, we think that, of course, humility should not be mistaken with low self-esteem, right? They are basically low self-esteem and pride are two sides of the same coin. So humility is not equivalent to low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is another play of the ego. Say in the similar case, that pride is also another play of ego. So both are play of the egos. They're just two sides of the same coin. But then humility means to situate ourselves in our original position, which means to be servant of Krishna. So that's where true humility comes about, is when we place ourselves or identify ourselves in that particular position as being the servant of the Lord, and to align our desires with the desires of the Lord. That's where true humility comes from. And also understanding our insignificant position and the extraordinary position of Krishna, and our insignificant position, as part and parcel of Krishna, as just a tiny spark of Krishna. So in the pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Vasudev, the leper, actually, and of course, he has contracted leprosy, And it was so bad that actually, that there were pus oozing out of the different pores of his body, and it was very bad condition he was in actually. So and people would always stay away from him whenever they see him, or whenever they come in contact, come close to him, they would actually keep a distance from him because of the condition of the leprosy condition of his body. But then when after meeting Kurma Brahman, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually traveling through South India, so he actually, Vasudev meets Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, it's a long story. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu leaves that place, and Vasudev Lepar actually comes there to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But then when he learns that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has already left that place, then he becomes very, very disappointed. He becomes very broken-hearted. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's none other than Krishna, who's Krishna himself incarnated in the mood of his devotee. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being the Antaryami, he knew that Vasudeva was actually feeling very broken-hearted because he couldn't meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually comes back to that place, being so kind to his devotees. Just to reciprocate with his devotees, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually comes back to that place. And then there, Vasudeva, the leper, actually meets Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they both basically, and without, you know, uh, without any kind of notice or anything, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes and hugs Vasudeva leper. And then he feels so bad because his body is in such a diseased condition of life, on pus is coming all around, and Mahaprabhu, so beautiful, and he's the supreme personality of Godhead. And then he thinks, this is actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has to be the supreme personality of Godhead. Otherwise, why would somebody come and embrace me, when I'm such in a diseased condition of life? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes and embraces him, and then by Mahaprabhu's mercy, his whole body gets transformed. His whole disease disappears, and he gets like a very beautiful and youthful body that he was before he contracted the disease. So his body transforms into a very beautiful, youthful body. And then, of course, Vasudeva was very, very grateful to the Lord that that he has actually cured his disease. But at the same time, a concern appears in his mind. And he is basically, and then he shares it with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says, all these while, I was having a diseased bodily condition, and I was not, there is no way I can be proud about this body. There was, so I was feeling humble, and I was, focusing on the holy names of Krishna. But now, my dear Lord, you have actually cured this disease, and you have given me a very beautiful body. My concern is that how shall I make sure that I actually don't become proud? How do I make sure that I don't fall into the trap of the bodily identification, under the influence of Maya? Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that you don't have to worry as long as you're chanting Hare Krishna and you're actually talking about Krishna to others, giving Krishna to others, then you'll be saved from the illusion, from the pitfall of pride. So it's a very instructive lesson for all of us that practicing devotees, as long as we are chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, then we'll be saved by the potency of the Lord, by the mercy of the Lord. As in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it said, Krishna Surya Sama, Maya Hoy Andhakar. Right? Wherever Krishna is there, that is like sunlight. And wherever Krishna is there is no Maya. There is no place for Maya. Otherwise, when if you're not taking shelter of the holy names of the Lord, if you're not chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and then there is every possibility that the mind actually can give shelter to all these enemies of the soul, which is 6 in number, like lust, greed, anger, pride, envy, and illusion. So these are the enemies of the soul. So as the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam discusses about how the mind should never be trusted. And because the moment we give some space to the mind can actually give shelter to any of these enemies, which can actually kill the soul. And the example that is given is if a hunter has caught an animal, the hunter never actually puts faith, or he is not too lenient, after catching the animal, because the animal can escape from him at any point of time. The hunter is still vigilant that the animal remains in his captivity, and whatever he does with the animal, he does with the animal. So similarly, the mind also, um, you know, we have to be very, very careful with the mind, because anytime, we are lenient with the mind, then the mind can actually give shelter to one of these six enemies of the Atma, and I can actually destroy the soul. Anyway, there is something that even Queen Kunti prays, how to actually, let's see if I'm able to see. Let's see. Yeah. How do I? Okay. So she very nicely prays. I can repeat. Janmaishwarya Shruta Shri Be Vedamana Madapuma Naivarhati Abhidhatum Vai Twama Kinchana Gocharam. It's a very nice verse by Queen Kunti and a very, very instructive purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we can read the translation on one section of the purport and we can have some more discussion on this. I'll read the translation. Maybe one of you can read a section of the purport. My Lord, your Lordship can be easily approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who's on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. So let's read a section of the purport. Anybody wants to read? Anyone here? Yeah.
Being materially advanced means taking birth in an aristocratic family and possessing great wealth, an education and attractive personal beauty. All materialistic men are mad after possessing all these material opulences, and this is known as the advancement of material civilization. But the result is that by that possession, all these material assets, one becomes artificially puffed up, intoxicated by such temporary possessions. Consequently, such materially puffed up persons are incapable of uttering the holy name of the Lord by addressing him feelingly, O Govinda, O Krishna. It is said in the Shastras that by once uttering the holy name of the Lord, the sinner gets rid of a quantity of sins that he is unable to cover. Such is the power of uttering the holy name of the Lord. There is not the least exaggeration in this statement. Actually, the Lord's holy name has such powerful potency, but there is a quality to such utterances also. It depends on the quality of feeling. A helpless man can feelingly utter the holy name of the Lord, whereas a man who utters the same holy name in great material satisfaction cannot be so sincere. A materially puffed up person may utter the holy name of the Lord occasionally, but he is incapable of uttering the name in quality.
Yeah, we can pause there. Yeah, it's a very nice purport. It talks about along the same lines of how being materially puffed up, Prabhupada here is saying it's not just about chanting. Of course, chanting the holy name of the Lord is always good because it purifies us, gradually purifies us. Even if we are materially puffed up, as long as we are chanting the holy name of the Lord, it purifies us and it also protects us from such being influenced by Maya or material energy. And when pride enters our heart, as Srila Prabhupada is saying here, we cannot call out the holy names feelingly. There is also a quality to the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. And of course, Prabhupada was also talking about how actually helpless man can actually call out the holy names more feelingly. Of course, it's not that according to the principle of Yukta Vairagya, we are not against opulence itself, as long as it's engaged in the service of the Lord. Everything is meant for the service of the Lord. But when one doesn't have that understanding, and when one thinks that all opulences one has is, he's a proprietor or the enjoyer of it, then one becomes materially puffed up, and then one cannot feelingly take shelter of the holy name of the Lord. So this is something that we can actually take as the first lesson. There, Indra actually offending Durvasa Muni because of being puffed up by the opulences and the enjoyment that's surrounding in the heavenly planets. So one can easily get carried away like that. And if one insults a great personality in that manner, then one can lose everything, both materially and spiritually. So one has to be very, very careful in dealing with the devotees of the Lord and dealing with great personalities. So these are some of the things that we can take from that particular incident as the pastime, continues. And the next part is so then what happens is then all the demigods, of course, then the demigods come to their senses. Oh, okay, we have actually, offended the great sage, and then we have lost all these opulences. Now they all go to Lord Brahma. I'm just summarizing. And then Lord Brahma actually, he understands the whole problem, and then he, tells them that let's all go to pray to Lord Vishnu, and then they go to the shore of the milk ocean and they start offering prayers to the Supreme Lord. And then, of course, then the Supreme Lord appears, actually, or yeah, he appears in his beautiful form. And then that is also a very great description of his beautiful form in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then the Supreme Lord actually begins speaking. So then the Supreme Lord says that, yes, hear from me, and this will create all auspiciousness for all of you. Since you have come to me, trying to, wanting a solution for this particular problem, I'm going to speak now. So listen carefully, though. Then the Lord actually gives them, advice of how actually the demigods should should actually create a truce with the demons. Actually, this is a very unlikely form of the solution, actually. So the Supreme Lord asked the demigods, you actually create a truce with the demons for now, and then work with them. And then the Lord actually gives them very nice instruction. He says, be patient. Don't be angry, don't become greedy, and be patient with them. And then try to work out a truce, and then churn the milk ocean with the help of the demons. Like that, the Supreme Lord is advising them. And of course, it's quite, it's not natural for the devatas to actually work with the demons. But then it's very nice to see that in this particular pastime, the devatas agreed to the proposal of the Supreme Lord. And you can see the obedient nature of the devatas, which is in contrast with the nature of the demons. The demons are, the demons generally don't align with the instructions or the desires of the Supreme Lord. But the devatas or the demigods are somebody who actually aligns with the desire of the Supreme Lord. So they actually are obedient, and they align with the desire of the Supreme Lord. And then the pastime continues after that. So the interesting thing is, so the devatas could have objected, actually. This is not your usual, mode of functioning, and we don't want to do this. But then they kept aside their false ego, and then they were ready to work with the demons immediately. They were ready to work with them. And so this is very important because this is also illustrative, because what is our goal sometimes? So the Lord Vishnu also advises them, don't get angry, be patient, don't become greedy, be patient, just try to work with them, and finally everything will come out in your favor. So when the devatas actually approached the demons, actually Bali Maharaj is the king, Of course, that's another beautiful story that comes in the next part of the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam about Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj is the king. So the Devatas actually, heeding the instructions of the Supreme Lord, they actually go approach the demons. And the demons, when they see the Devatas actually approaching, some of the demons are immediately, they immediately get angry. They immediately get agitated, and they want to go and fight with them or destroy them. That's their initial reaction. So even though the demons were reacting like this, the Devatas were actually approaching them in a mood of working with them. So they were actually following the instruction of not to get angry, not to react, just trying to follow the instructions of the Lord to form a truce with the demons. Of course, Bali Maharaj then tells them, cool down, everybody cool down. That they are not coming here to attack us. They are actually just coming. It looks like, they are coming here to talk about something. So everybody just cool down. So Bali Maharaj, asks them to cool down. So here you can see another lesson we can take is that the Devatas were focused on their goal of actually heeding to the instructions of Lord Vishnu, which is to actually create a truce. They were not, agitated, or they were not disturbed by the behavior of the demons when they immediately entered, their own place actually, which is the Svargaloka, and they didn't have any grudge also that we have to work with the demons. These are the people who actually threw us away, from our own kingdom. So they were ready to put aside their own false ego, and they were ready to actually work according to the instructions of Lord Vishnu, and keeping the ultimate goal in mind, that what needs to be achieved. So another lesson that we can also understand is to actually, life can present us, many different circumstances. Sometimes, it can be pleasant, sometimes it can be unpleasant. Many different circumstances can come in our life, but if we keep an eye on what the goal that needs to be achieved, which is here, it's a perfection of Krishna consciousness, then we can actually, we have that conviction, then we can actually continue, pursuing the goal irrespective of what happens. All, ups and downs of life will come and go. All different, pleasant and unpleasant situations will come and go. But as long as we have the sight on our ultimate goal that we want to achieve, then we will be continuing our journey toward that ultimate goal and ultimate perfection. This is also illustrated very nice by in the pastime of Hanumanji in Ramayana. Hanumanji was actually crossing the ocean to reach Lanka. And so he had many obstacles along the way. One of the obstacles he had was the mother of I think the mother of snakes, if I remember correctly, the mother of snakes, her name is Surasa. So she appears in front of Hanumanji. So what is Hanumanji's mission? Going to Lanka? What is his mission? Finding Mother Sita, basically, and delivering the message back to Lord Ram. That is Hanumanji's mission. But then many obstacles come. One of the obstacles is the Surasa appears before Hanumanji. And then she tells Hanumanji that I have a benediction from Lord Brahma that whoever actually crosses this path actually has to enter my mouth. And then she says that I'm also very hungry right now. And you seem to be a very good meal. So you cannot, move away from, you cannot go after this point, you have to enter my mouth first. So that's the condition she places before Hanumanji. And Hanumanji is like, I am actually on a mission. So first Hanumanji tries to negotiate with her. See, I'm actually on a mission for my Lord. So let me finish my mission. Let me go find Mother Sita and then inform the Lord and then come back. And then I'll enter your mouth and then you can do whatever you want to do with me. But then she says, no, nobody, how can I believe your words? You have to enter my mouth. And then what happens is, then Hanumanji thinks, what is going on? I mean, who are you, and then he basically starts to show his power actually. So he becomes actually 10 yojanas long. I mean, 10 yojanas is, so many miles. I think one yojana is 8 miles, I think. So he becomes 10 yojanas long, and then he shows this huge form, and then he thinks that maybe, she will get frightened and she will go away and not be an obstacle on his path. And then she increases to 20 yojanas, actually, her size. And then Hanumanji sees, then he actually increases to 30 yojanas. And then she increases more and he increases more, like that. They are both increasing in their size. So many miles and miles actually of size. But then suddenly it occurs to Hanumanji, what am I doing here? She's increasing in size, I'm increasing in size, but this is not my goal actually. My goal is to actually go and find Mother Sita. Then what he does is, he suddenly, as they are increasing and playing this game, suddenly he becomes very small. And then he quickly enters her mouth and then comes out very swiftly. And even before she could react, he is out of her mouth actually. So similarly, you can think, they can sometimes, the false ego comes and then it distracts us, to see, who's big, am I big, you are big, or and things like that. But if we actually not get distracted and keep our focus on the goal, like how Hanumanji did, then Surasa said, okay, now you've entered my mouth. And so she blesses him, you'll be successful in her mission. And then she leaves him actually. So if we keep, focused on our goals, like how the demigods have done, how Hanumanji has done, irrespective of what is happening in our lives, there'll be ups and downs, there'll be many circumstances in our life. But if we continue the process of devotional service, continue the process of chanting of the holy names of the Lord, then we'll surely attain perfection. And then what happens in this pastime is then they actually they all begin their so the demon and demigods, they actually form a truce, and then they go ahead, and then of course the Lord then the instruction of the Lord is basically to get the Mandara mountain, and to use Vasuki as the rope. So the demigods and the demons are lifting the Mandara mountain, and then they're coming. But then at some point they feel it's so heavy that they actually just drop it. And then when they drop it, actually, many of the demons and demigods, they get crushed. Actually, their hands get crushed, legs get crushed, and they're in a pretty bad situation. So at the time, the Lord actually comes in Garuda, and then of course the demigods call out for the Lord to help, and then the Lord actually comes in Garuda, and then he actually takes the Mandara mountain and puts it in Garuda's back, and then he actually flies and then brings it to the ocean. So this is another lesson. The next lesson we will talk about is how, excuse me, we can see how at every step, actually they required the Lord's help. So in this particular pastime, we can see how at every step they were dependent on the Lord. Every step was actually out of their hands, and finally they have to take shelter of the Lord and be dependent on the Lord to accomplish the task. And of course, Krishna himself says that he's the ultimate doer. Prakriti kriyamanani gune karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudatma karta hammeti manyate. There is always a tendency, when we do something, accomplish something great, then we think we take all the credit for ourselves. But actually, Krishna is the ultimate doer. Of course, we have our part where we do our part of the duty, but ultimately results are sanctioned by Krishna, and we are so much dependent on the Lord. And this pastime shows that particular lesson. So Mandara mountain is the first instance when the demigod and the demons required help. The next instance is when then the Lord actually the Lord puts the Mandara mountain in the milk ocean. Then what happens to the mountain? Because there's no base, the mountain starts sinking. Again, the demons are helpless actually. They are like, of course, demons don't take shelter of the Lord, but the demigods actually feeling helpless, they take shelter of the Lord. Then the Lord appears as Kurma avatar. So the Lord appears as Kurma avatar, and then he comes and then he actually gives the base and shelter for that Mandara mountain, so that it has particular base to stand on. In fact, so the Kurma avatar actually gives the steadiness for the Mandara mountain. In fact, it is said that one should pray to Kurmadev if one wants steadiness in their own practice, spiritual practice, actually. Because by the appearance of Kurmadev, the mountain became steady in its position. So, so that's the next instance where the Lord actually helped them. And then the third instance is, even though the now the mountain has a base, but then still the mountain actually was wobbling. It was not, even though it has a base and it was placed in a base, still it was wobbling because there was no support from the top. Then the Lord appears as Sahasrabahu, thousand-armed form of the Lord, and then he sits on the mountain to basically support it from the top. So the Lord is supporting from the bottom. The Lord brought it. The Lord is also supporting from the top. Now they begin actually churning. They begin churning the milk ocean. Of course, Vasuki is feeling. Of course, first the Lord comes and says to the demons, you actually catch the tail of the snake. I myself, of course, the Lord is also there as Ajita. The form of the Lord, the name of the Lord appearing with the demigods is called as Ajita. The Lord tells the demons, "We will catch the mouth side of Vasuki. You catch the tail of Vasuki." The demon said, "What are you talking?" Basically, it's let me see if I open that. I think I have not opened that verse, but I will read the Sanskrit. The demons basically say, the tail is considered to be inauspicious. We are so learned, we are so, knowledgeable, and we are so high, we have high birth. How can we catch the tail of a of a snake? It's called as, like in Hindi, it's called poonch, right? Poonch nahi pakadenge hum. We won't catch the tail. We will only catch the head because it's considered inauspicious. The Lord smiled, and then the Lord allowed them actually. So this is what um, people who are materialistic, they don't listen to the Lord. People who are not devotees, and sometimes even devotees, we don't listen to the Lord, and then we get actually burnt afterwards. So the demons actually gets burnt afterwards because as they are churning Vasuki, and Vasuki, being stretched like this, he basically pours out fumes and poison and everything through his mouth, and then the demons actually get fried with that, actually, the poison and fumes and so on and so forth. Of course, demigods also gets affected. So at the time, the Lord actually arranges for rain to come and shower. He actually arranges for rain and fresh air actually to blow, so that actually they can overcome their weariness. Like that, every step of this pastime, you can see how they were so totally dependent on the Lord. And it's a good mood to actually cultivate. We are also, actually, if we think that we are not dependent like this, we are in illusion. So we have the illusion of control. Maya's illusion of control. But we are also, every step of our life, whether it be material accomplishment or spiritual accomplishment, material progress or spiritual progress, at every step of our life, we are actually dependent on the Lord. And the whole pastime is showing how we are actually dependent on the Lord every step. And then just to quickly summarize, the demigods, demons, Vasuki, everybody is feeling tired after some time. They are not able to continue because it's just heavy duty work, actually, churning the milk ocean. And then what the Lord does, the Lord actually enters into them, as they enters into the demigods as the mode of goodness, enters into the demons of mode of passion, and enters into Vasuki as mode of ignorance. And then he energizes them, and then they continue the churning of the milk ocean. So you can see every step, it's you can see how the Lord actually empowers them to continue with their effort. And finally, what happens then? So this is very illustrative point, and Arjuna also discusses that in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. How we can be actually dependent on the Lord. Okay, where is my mom? This is actually the first canto, 15th chapter of the Bhagavatam. This is after Krishna's disappearance. And after Krishna's disappearance, all the astounding power that Arjuna had also disappeared. So when Krishna disappeared, he also took away all the powers that was invested with Arjuna to actually carry out a particular purpose that the Lord wanted to accomplish. And once that was accomplished, and the Lord actually, disappeared from here, how the sun actually disappears from our side, the Lord also disappeared. Then Arjuna's astounding powers also disappeared actually. And this is what Arjuna is saying in the first canto, 15th chapter of this particular. I'll read the translation. I'll read the Sanskrit. It's a very beautiful verse. Arjuna Vacha Vanchito Ham Maharaja Harina Bandhurupina Ename Paharattam Tejo Deva Vishmapanam Maha. Arjuna said, O king, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who treated me exactly like an intimate friend, has left me alone. Thus, my astounding power, which astonished even the demigods, is no longer with me. So it's a very, very beautiful purport. Anybody wants to read? And then we'll conclude after a summary of discussion on this particular part. Yes.
In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, anyone specifically powerful and opulent in wealth, strength, beauty, knowledge, and all that is materially desirable is to be considered but a product of an insignificant portion of the complete whole of my energy. No one, therefore, can be independently powerful in any measure without being endowed by the Lord. When the Lord descends on the earth along with his eternal, ever-liberated associates, he not only displays the divine energy possessed by himself, but also empowers his associate devotees with the required energy to execute his mission of incarnation. It is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita 4.5 that Lord and his eternal associates descend to earth many times, but the Lord remembers all the different roles of incarnations, whereas the associates, by his supreme will, forget them. Similarly, the Lord takes away with him all his associates when he disappears from the earth. The power and energy which were bestowed upon Arjuna were required for fulfillment of the mission of the Lord. But when his mission was fulfilled, the emergency powers were withdrawn from Arjuna because the astounding powers of Arjuna which were astonishing even to the denizens of heaven, were no longer required, and they were not meant for going back home, back to Godhead. If endowment of powers and withdrawal of the powers by the Lord are possible even for a great devotee like Arjuna, or even the demigods in heaven, then what to speak of ordinary living beings who are but pigs compared to such great souls? The lesson is, therefore, that no one should be puffed up by his powers borrowed from the Lord. The sane man should rather feel obliged to the Lord for such benefactions and must utilize such powers for the service of the Lord. Such power can be withdrawn at any time by the Lord. So the best use of such power and opulence is to engage them in this service.
Yeah. It's a very nice purport and description. Actually, Arjuna gets defeated by a group of bandits. He was actually trying to save some of the remaining Dwarkavasis, but then as he is actually bringing them to Hastinapur, he gets defeated by a group of robbers, or some bandits, some small. No, actually, it's a group of bandits or cowherd men, some cowherd men. That's just simple people actually. Arjuna, who's such astounding powers, he gets defeated. Of course, the Acharya's command, that is Krishna himself, who comes actually in the form of the cowherd, one of the cowherd boys, and then to take the rest of the residents of Dwarka back to the spiritual realm. But here it's a very illustrative point. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Shabde ke paurusham nrishu, I'm the ability in man. But of course, the ability is useful, in accomplishing things. both materially and spiritually, but one cannot become puffed up because of that, because ultimately it's Krishna who's empowering us and giving us the special abilities to carry out a certain role, a certain part, both materially and spiritually. So we can see from this past times how actually the demigods were dependent on the Lord at every step. And similarly, Arjuna here also was dependent upon the empowerment of the Lord. So being in this mood of dependence is actually a very good mood, especially when we're chanting the holy names of the Lord. So understanding that everything actually comes, as a gift from the Lord, including this body, mind, whatever faculties we have, and being grateful for that and being dependent. Of course, dependent itself means that we have to be humble. So the pre-qualification of feeling dependency is that we feel humble. And when we when we can feel humble, when we understand actually Krishna is arranging everything. Krishna has given me everything. I don't possess any of these things. The best thing is I can use all whatever is available, whether it's um, knowledge, intelligence, wealth, any of these faculties I have, I can use it in the service of the Lord. And by this, we can actually maintain humility and also dependence of the Lord. And this is actually a very good mode to cultivate when we are chanting the holy names of the Lord. As Prabhupada said in the other purport, there is also a quality to the chanting the holy names of the Lord. And how does that quality come? When somebody cries out to the Lord in a helpless manner. And how can one cry out to the Lord if one is feeling full in themselves? If one is feeling the center of the whole universe, how can we actually cry out to the Lord with such quality feelings actually? So all these different pastimes are there to actually inculcate how we are so much dependent on the Lord. How, so that actually then helps us to keep a mood of humility. And that really helps us in the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Just one more point I wanted to convey from this particular pastime is that then Lord Shiva actually, of course, the first thing that comes of churning of the milk ocean is what? Halahal. The poison. What is it? Poison. Yeah, that is what comes out, as they're churning the milk ocean. Of course, many other wonderful things comes later. So, of course, that is also we can expect as we are chanting the holy names of the Lord, as we are starting to practice the chanting of the holy names, what is the first thing that's going to come out? It's not nectar is not going to come out immediately. What is going to come out is halahal from our own heart. And that is the whole process of anartha nivritti. So as most of you know, there are different stages on the path of bhakti. There is sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya, and then next comes anartha nivritti. So anartha nivritti is of course for a practicing sadhaka, that is one of the toughest phase during the practice of bhakti. Once you cross anartha nivritti, then you go into the stage of nishtha, which is basically steady practice, where you are not swayed by the different life situations or up or down of life, but you stay completely focused on practicing basically applying the practices of bhakti yoga practices. So that is what is going to come out first, is the halahal or the all the anarthas that actually is been in our heart for many lifetimes. That is what is going to come out. Like for example, if you have not cleaned a particular place for many months or many years, right, it will be filled with dust, right? If you enter that place which has not been used or cleaned for a long time, it will be filled with dust. But then as you start clearing out the dust, suddenly it appears that it become more dusty, right? As you're clearing out the dust, suddenly it appears like, it has become more dusty. So similarly, as we are churning the I wouldn't say milk ocean, but dirty maybe some kind of ocean in our heart, as we are churning it, all these different anarthas will come up. All these anarthas will actually will rise, and then we'll have to face it actually. Many times we'll have to say, oh my God, I never thought I would this was there in my heart. I never thought, I would behave this way. I never thought I'm like this. So all these different anarthas will come out and we'll have to deal with it actually. But as we continue our process all these anarthas will come out. And then as we continue our process of devotional service, but slowly, they will be cleared and we will be elevated to the mode of goodness, at least mode of goodness, and then Shuddha Shattva from there on. And so that is another instructive lesson we can learn is as we're practicing, don't, of course, Prabhupada said chant and be happy, but eventually, initially, of course, Krishna, if just to encourage us, may give us some sample of this higher taste, but then you need to work for it after that. We need to work for that after that. Like how he gave some sample to Narada Muni, actually. The first kind of Bhagavatam, he gave him, for a moment, he actually showed his darshan to Narada Muni, and Narada Muni was just fascinated by that, and then he disappeared. And then he was frantically trying different means, to try to again see the form of the Lord. But then the Lord, after some time, he spoke to him. He said, I will not be visible to you. You still have some ways to go for purifying yourself. I just showed you to encourage you that, be on this path of spiritual life. Yeah. And then, of course, then Lord Shiva, as you all know, then they all run to Lord Shiva. The halahal is actually destroying the whole world, and all the living beings are suffering because of the halahal. They actually run to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva, being very, very kind, he actually drinks that poison. Of course, this is also very illustrative because there is a very nice verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It says, Tapyante lokatapena sadava prayasho janai param aradhanam tad adi purushasya akilatmanaha. So Lord Shiva is basically, Sukadeva Goswami is telling, Lord Shiva actually drinks that poison for others' welfare. And of course, that's why he has a mark also, as Neelakanta, the blue mark on his throat. So then, Sukadeva Goswami is saying, great persons almost always accept voluntary suffering because of the misery of people in general. Right? This is considered the highest method of worshipping the Supreme Lord who is present in everyone's heart. So you can see all great personalities actually take some trouble, take voluntary suffering for the benefit of others. Like how our Srila Prabhupada did actually. He came to the West. This was great austerity for him. It was not, he could have just remained in Vrindavan and then he could have just gone back home, back to God, and perfected his life and gone back home, back to God. But he took the trouble, of course, under the order of his Guru Maharaj, he took the trouble and he prepared himself to actually execute the order of the spiritual master. And but this is actually the quality of great personality, like Lord Shiva here, Srila Prabhupada, is that they actually take voluntary suffering to benefit others. So it's not just about how I can actually um, which is important. That is also important. I can actually attain perfection. That is important. But at some point, we should also start thinking about how can I actually benefit others. And this pleases the Supreme Lord, actually. The highest to worship the Lord is when one takes voluntary suffering for the benefit of others, and especially by giving them the spiritual knowledge. And that's why you can see in our temple, so many devotees go out on book distribution. They all go out on book distribution, on a Saturday, where they could have just rested on Saturday. They could have just casually, spend their time and so on and so forth. But in spite of working for 5 days, many devotees actually go out to actually practice this principle, voluntarily taking suffering for showing compassion to others. This is actually pleases the Lord. And Lord Shiva is showing by his own example. And of course, great personalities have shown by their own example. This is one of the best ways to actually please the Lord, is to try to show compassion for the other conditioned living entities. So this is also illustrative, very good lesson that we can take from this particular pastime. So there are many lessons like that. I think I'll pause here. And then if you have any comments or questions, we can quickly go over them. Yes.
Thank you so much for having us. I was thinking about the point that you said, firstly about the difference between humility and low self-esteem.
Right.
On one side, I understand, Prabhu, that every skill that we have is coming from the Lord,
Right.
and that helps us develop humility.
Right.
But I feel sometimes that also puts us in a position where, I mean, personally for me, I felt that I want to avoid making any decisions because I feel that eventually, if it is all planned out by the Lord itself, some decision would have come, especially in critical situations. You have to take some critical decision when both options seem to be right. You have to select one. So somewhere I feel that's like a mixture between sometimes you're taking humility because whatever the Lord chooses, I'm ready to accept, versus sometimes it feels like you are having low self-esteem, so you're not making the choices. That makes
Yeah, to some extent. It really, I mean, thank you for the question. Prabhu. Just few thoughts. One is it really depends on the context and the details of the situation. But in general, you can understand that it's not that, of course, we can accept the plan of the Lord, we can accept the desire of the Lord. And to clarify that, we have means for that, which is, through the instructions of the spiritual master, through the text like the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, if you are able to ascertain, exactly, and especially, from a very practical viewpoint, you need, some senior devotees who you can discuss with and be able to. So first of all, it's not that it's devotional service. It doesn't mean that, Krishna only, leads the way all the time. It's also devotees many times lead the way. All right. For that matter, Rukmini actually wrote a letter to Krishna, and she said, here is the plan, and then she basically, pours her heart out, I've heard about your glories. I would like to marry you. And she expresses her desire. And then she says that if you don't give me your mercy, I will, embrace death and I will perform austerities for many, many lifetimes so that I can get your audience. Like that, she writes a very beautiful letter, but she also discusses a plan with the Lord. I will come to the Devi temple here. You actually stop there, and then you can kidnap me from there. So she actually proposes a plan to the Lord, how actually he can kidnap her. And then the Lord accepts the plan, actually. So it's not that, sometimes situations can be very confusing. I'm not saying that all situations are very clear like that. And especially in like a practicing stage, it can be confusing. And that's why we need spiritual masters with whom we can discuss, because practical, there is so many details actually. And as I said to Kautuk Prabhu, I mean, it's a common proverb that people, the devil is in the details, as they say. So there are so many details actually that it requires, because the philosophy itself is abstract, and how to apply that philosophy in a particular context, in a particular situation, requires acumen, experience, and so on and so forth. And the more the person is advanced, they can understand the situation very quickly, and then they can give guidance. So those are some thoughts. Any other comments? Anybody wants to add something to Prabhu's question? Kautuk Prabhu, you want to add something? Any other? Yes, Anil Prabhu.
Follow-up question. So what if we don't have a association of a guru, like a personal association of the guru? Then senior devotee.
Yeah, then in the whatever community you're in, you can consult with the senior devotees over there, and whoever you trust, whoever you have association with, you consult with them. Generally, it's very difficult when we are in a particular situation, because we are so much bound in that situation. It's very difficult to see things objectively because we have our own subjective bias. When we are in the thick, part of that situation, it's very difficult to see things very clearly. But a person who's outside of the situation can see things more clearly. So that's why everybody needs somebody who they can look up to, and then they can get some guidance. I mean, the same case, like how if you hold the book too closely, you'll not be able to see anything clearly because you are right in the middle of it. So similarly, when we are in the middle of the situation, it's very difficult to see things clearly. But when you are able to create some distance, then you can see what is written in the book clearly. So similarly, when we are able to separate ourselves from that emotions and situations, we will be able to see objectively, but that's very difficult. It's not practically, I would say, unless you're very advanced spiritually, it's difficult.
I think that if you're saying like sleep over it,
Yeah,
something
yeah, that
to,
might
like,
help actually.
sleep over it and think after 2 days and see what you want to do.
Yeah,
actually.
that basically that creates a distance. That's what the idea is. You're able to still create a distance. And that is also mode of goodness is when you are able to observe the emotions without identifying with the emotions too much. That is mode of goodness. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu says very nicely, identify the emotion, but don't identify with the emotion. It's a play of words. And that is actually a quality in Sattva Guna, if you're able to. And that is also a spiritual quality where you are actually, where Krishna says, be a witness. The 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says all these activities are going on, speaking, evacuating. What else he says? All these different kind of activities or body are going on, but then the soul is aloof from that actually, acting as a witness. So that is also a pretty advanced platform, I would say. Any other comments? Any reflections? Any point you liked from today's?
Question.
Yeah.
So, regarding this puffing up portion,
Being puffed up, you mean?
being puffed. So, this happens like maybe it's it happens to me. It happens a lot.
Mm.
So, how do what to think and what practical steps to take for the discontent
Chant Hare Krishna.
that is being done.
Oh, that is being done. I see. Yeah, chant Hare Krishna, and associate with devotees. It's just some of the basic principles are the same. Read the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam as much as you can, and then be in the association of devotees. And I would some practical, you can um, try to do some menial service in the temple, in your home, wherever. I mean, just a suggestion. Once in a while, it's good to do something menial, something in the background where you're not noticed, and you just do it the service for the sake of service. That is also very healing for the heart. That's very yeah, that's very purifying actually. Menial service is very purifying, like cleaning the temple, washing the pots, serving others like that. I mean, I would say, especially if, I can speak for my level, as a practicing sadhaka, it's good to always have a mix of both services at the foreground and services at the background. So it's always, I mean, Radheshyam Prabhu also, shows by his personal example. Whenever I've seen this, observed it every time, whenever he gives class and whenever he is doing, just after finishing up the class, he immediately goes to serve prasadam. Right? That is actually, I mean, he's showing by his own example that just because I sit and in the Vyasasana and give a class doesn't mean that I'm superior to others. Of course, I'm doing this, trying to do this as a in the matter of service, as a matter of service, the mood of service. But if you also follow with something menial, then that actually really grounds us, and not think that I'm something high, I'm something bigger like that. So we have many examples like that. So do something menial is also does a very humbling effect on us. So something practical, but the main thing is chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. As long as we are chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, then we are protected by Krishna. Krishna will arrange everything. in the association of devotees, he'll arrange in such a way that those things are purified over a period of time. Any other? Okay.
I want to share a reflection.
Thank you,
The
Prabhu.
fourth lesson mentioned about Lord was at the base of the mountain
Hmm.
because it was sinking, and he was at the top because it was wobbling, and then he was at the middle also because they were not able to churn the mountain. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that I'm the beginning and the middle and I'm the end.
Right.
So he's saying that he's the top, he's the bottom, and he's the middle.
Yeah, he is.
Things doesn't-
Yeah,
so
yeah, very
maybe
nicely.
more clarity why Krishna says these things.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Very nice reflection. Yeah, and everything happens because of Krishna. Everything happens because of Krishna. So when good things are happening to us, then we can be grateful to Krishna. When bad things are happening to us, we can be prayerful to Krishna. And that way, we can basically, come, grow our connection to Krishna stronger and stronger in this way. So gratitude is antidote to pride. And of course, when we are so gratitude is an excellent, amazing quality. If you are able to show our gratitude to devotees, show our gratitude to Guru and Krishna, then that gratitude actually prevents us from being proud, from being taking things for granted. So gratitude is also a very nice quality that we can try to apply. You can see um, how Krishna actually is intervening in our life. How Krishna is actually showing mercy, how devotees are actually showing mercy. We can actually reflect on that. And then the gratitude is an antidote to entitlement, to pride, to taking things for granted, and so on and so forth. And it's a powerful energy to connect to the Lord. I'm actually chanting Hare Krishna means, saying thank you in one sense. Because Krishna is already doing so many things for us, even without our asking. So we can show our gratitude by chanting the Hare Krishna Nama.
Give those announcements about Radharashmi.
So you can give. Actually, I don't. Should I share it? Let me see. Okay.
I would like to thank Sri Sundarananda and Prabhu for such an amazing class.
Jai Shila Prabhupada ki jai.
Prabhu mentioned 4 lessons where first was that we should not be puffed up, just like the demigod Indra, he got puffed up and he could not accept the mercy of Durvasa. So we should not be puffed up, and we should take shelter of chanting. Gave the story of Vasudeva the leper. And secondly, Prabhu mentioned that we should be patient. We should keep the end in mind always. We are here for a temporary phase. We should not be greedy. We should not be angry, because the demigods followed that and they kept the end in mind. So they were able to continue their truce with the demons. And third thing Prabhu mentioned was about the Lord being at the top of the mountain, at the bottom, at the middle. So we should never take credit for what we are able to do. We should always understand that Krishna is the ability in man. So one should remain free from pride and one should be humble. For things that I have not done, I should understand that Krishna is giving me the ability to do them. For things that I have done, I should remain prideless and be grateful. The fourth thing that Prabhu mentioned was the halahal. Whenever we are churning, the first thing that will come out will be poison. Any project, especially chanting, but any project we do, anything good comes at a cost. First thing that comes up is adversity. So if we can see that adversity as the reward of the Lord and continue the process, then we can finally expect nectar. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for
Thank you.
giving such nice class. And we also have a Radha Ashtami festival tomorrow. We have festivities starting from 4:30 a.m. If you like, you can come for Mangalarti. We'll have chanting followed by Bhagavatam class from 8 to 10:45. Actually, we have a very exalted sannyasi visiting us, His Holiness Devamrit Swami. He's graduate from Yale University and he became a devotee in New York 50 years ago. So he's preaching in Australia and New Zealand specifically and all over the world. So he's going to speak tomorrow in the glories of Srimati Radharani. And our own His Grace Vaisheshika Maharaj will be there. So a lot of nectar you can expect tomorrow. Please join us. Followed by Prasadam at 1 p.m. because there is fasting until noon. And then we have evening festivities starting at 3:30, the Sunday feast. We'll have glories of Srimati Radharani, Kirtan, and then Prasadam. So please join us. We also are doing a fundraiser for Srimad Bhagavatam because it's Radha Ashtami. So we are sending Srimad Bhagavatam sets to India as well as US and South America, in UK, all over the world. So if you like to sponsor on the occasion of Radha Ashtami for yourself, if you don't have, charity begins at home, and then for your near and dear ones, and for others. So as Prabhu said, we should always do menial service by offering our hard-earned money for somebody else benefit, including ourselves. It's some kind of menial service if you are not able to do it physically. So please consider it. Yes. Haribo. Anybody else would like to sponsor? Yeah. Prabhu. One set of Bhagavatam has 18 books. It has 12 cantos. Prabhu spoke today from 8th canto. So it is full of nectar. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is like smoothie. So Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, the third verse of the second verse of Srimad Bhagavatam says that Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam shukmukhad amrit drava samyutam pibat bhagavatam rasamalayam muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavuka. That this Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence or is the fruit of the desired tree of the Vedas. And please, O expert and thoughtful men, please drink this. This nectar was already relishable, but because it is spoken by Shukdev Goswami, it has become even more tasty. Just like when a fruit is touched by a parrot, it becomes even more tasty. So please drink it and be in ecstasy, and you will faint in ecstasy, and then you get up and drink some more. This will keep you high forever. That is Srimad Bhagavatam, it's full of nectar. So please consider sponsoring. There are 18 volumes. They cost $250 for US and $200 only for India. Anybody else? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Vishal Prabhu, Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you, dear devotees, so much for joining us on a Saturday evening. Yes.
And also sponsor.
Haribo!